Melody Shari recently had to step in and address her fans after a small situation at her daughter Suga Mama's school turned into something much bigger than it was ever meant to be. What started as a light-hearted story that Melody shared with her children quickly became a conversation online that got blown out of proportion. Many content creators, bloggers, and even some fans began spinning the situation into something heavy and dramatic. Melody, however, wanted to make it very clear that while she appreciates the love her supporters have for her and her children, there are times when people can go too far. In this case, she felt like fans were doing a little too much about the whole incident, and she had no choice but to check them publicly so things did not get out of hand in her real life. The situation began when Melody received a phone call from her daughter's school. She explained in her live that she was in the car with two of her older kids when she got the call. At first, Melody didn't even recognize the number. It was an out-of-state number, and she thought it might have been related to her work in property preservation. So she answered, and on the other end was a coach from her daughter's school. The coach explained that there had been a small incident during PE class. A little boy had tapped Suga Mama, also known as Melanie, on the butt as they were leaving. The school wanted to notify Melody and assure her they were handling it properly, and now, most parents might immediately feel a wave of anger or concern. But Melody explained that her daughter hadn't even mentioned the incident when she got picked up from school. Melanie was acting normal, laughing, and chatting, with no indication that anything unusual had happened. What made the story funny for Melody was the reaction of her two older kids in the car, Mariah and Tank. When they overheard their mom on the phone with the school, they thought the call was about them. Both of them immediately got nervous, thinking they were in trouble. Melody laughed at how their faces changed, and she joked with them about how they acted guilty even though they hadn't done anything wrong. After the call, Melody shared the story on her live, telling it in a light tone, just like she tells other stories about her children. She wasn't upset about the incident, nor did she feel like it was anything serious. In her mind, it was just a reminder for kids to keep their hands to themselves, especially at such a young age. The kids are only 5 years old, and in kindergarten, it's not unusual for them to sometimes play around in ways that need correction. Melody wasn't alarmed or angry. She simply saw it as an opportunity for the school to teach boundaries and for parents to reinforce that message. However, once the story made its way onto the internet, it became something very different. Some bloggers and content creators started posting about it with heavy titles, framing it as if there was a major problem or a threat against Suga Mama. Fans who are deeply protective of Melody's children began flooding social media with messages of concern and outrage. They said things like, "We don't play about the 4-piece nuggets," referring to Melody's 4 kids, who are affectionately called that by fans. But Melody herself was surprised at how serious people were making it. To her, it was never that deep. In fact, after finding out who the little boy was, Melody explained that it turned out to be one of her neighbor's kids. She even texted the boy's mother, and they laughed about it together. The other parent reassured Melody that they had already spoken to their son about keeping his hands to himself, and everything was resolved peacefully. For Melody, that was the end of the story. It was light, it was handled, and there was no drama attached to it. But online, the narrative took on a life of its own. This is where Melody felt the need to step in and check her fans. On another live, she spoke directly about the situation and asked her supporters to calm down. She said she appreciated the love and the prayers that people send her way, but sometimes fans go too far by creating a heavier energy around situations than what she herself is giving. Melody pointed out that when she told the story, she was laughing and joking with her kids. She was never upset or angry. She couldn't understand why people were bringing such strong emotions and negativity into something that, in her eyes, was simply not that serious. She reminded everyone that these were 5-year-old children. They're in kindergarten, learning about boundaries, and still figuring out what's appropriate and what isn't. For Melody, this was simply an age-appropriate learning moment. She stressed that people needed to keep balance. Yes, it's fine to love and protect her children, but there's also a point where fans need to respect her perspective as a mother. If she's not upset, then there's no reason for others to create a storm around the issue. Melody also explained how this type of overreaction can cause problems in her real life. Since the little boy is her neighbor's child, exaggerated stories online could make things awkward or uncomfortable in the community. Instead of being a harmless and teachable moment for 2 kids, it could become a situation where neighbors feel judged or attacked based on what strangers online are saying. Melody made it clear that she doesn't want that kind of unnecessary tension in her life, especially when she's trying to co-parent and raise her children in peace. She also touched on how content creators sometimes use these stories for clicks and views. By making something sound more serious than it is, people are more likely to click on the video or post. But for Melody, it's frustrating because it distorts her actual experience and feelings. She said this is exactly why some people stop sharing stories about their lives. When small, light-hearted moments are turned into drama, it discourages her from being open with her supporters. Melody gave an example in her live, saying, "How are y'all upset when I wasn't even upset?" She reminded everyone that she was literally in the car laughing with her kids about how they thought the call from the school was about them. For her, the funniest part wasn't even what happened to Suga Mama but how her older kids reacted with guilt before knowing the details. That's what she wanted to highlight, a normal, funny parenting moment. This situation also highlighted something larger about Melody's relationship with her fans. Over the years, she's built a very loyal fan base that truly cares about her and her children. They want to protect her after everything she's been through with Martell and on the show. However, Melody wants people to understand that being protective is one thing, but adding unnecessary weight to her life is another. She doesn't want her fans' passion to accidentally create stress or conflict for her family. For Melody, this was a chance to remind her fans of boundaries. She's thankful for the love, but she needs them to trust her judgment as a mother. If she says it's not a big deal, then people should respect that and not try to make it bigger. At the end of the day, she's the one raising her kids, and she's the one who knows how to handle situations when they arise. She closed her thoughts by once again stressing that these are young children, and these kinds of incidents are simply part of growing up. The lesson is to keep your hands to yourself and respect personal space. She even mentioned how her own kids sometimes do little things that need correcting, and it's just part of parenting. Melody doesn't see everything as a crisis. Instead, she chooses to address it, teach her kids, and move forward without adding unnecessary drama. In the end, Melody's message was clear: supporters can love her kids, pray for them, and cheer them on, but there has to be balance. Not everything requires outrage, and not everything needs to be turned into a headline. Sometimes, a story is just what it is, a funny moment in the life of a mom raising her children. This situation serves as a reminder of the double-edged sword of having such a strong fan base. While it's beautiful to have people love and support you, it can also be overwhelming when that love turns into overprotection. Melody is simply asking her fans to trust her more and let her decide what deserves energy and what doesn't. The way she handled it also shows her maturity. Instead of ignoring the situation or letting it spiral, she addressed it directly with calmness and grace. She laughed about it, explained the truth, and encouraged her supporters to relax. That's exactly why so many people admire her, because even in situations where others might lash out, she chooses peace and balance. And so, what was originally a small kindergarten incident turned into a bigger conversation about boundaries, both for kids in school and for fans online. Melody used the moment not only to parent her own kids but also to parent her fan base a little, reminding them that love without balance can sometimes cause more harm than good.